When working on an HTML page, often it will not look like it is supposed to. I'm going to show you how to use developer tools built into the modern browsers to help discover and diagnose problems more easily than simply staring at code. First, let's take a look at an example page from last week's homework using an HTML editor. Now this editor has some nice features. For one, it uses color coding to highlight tags and different aspects of things like strings values and the content itself, the character encoding, and so on. It even has a built-in HTML syntax checker. So if you notice down here at the bottom, it says no issues. That's an important step. That means that the HTML is well formed or properly structured. Another feature it has is when you select a tag or put your focus on a tag, you'll see the corresponding tag afterwards. So all of these things will make it easier to write HTML, but it doesn't solve every problem. If we look at one of our assignments in the browser, this happens to be one that's got a few issues we're going to look at. On this tab, you've got a working correct proper page, and you notice that it looks a bit different than our sample page. Now I happen to be using Chrome, and in Chrome you can go to the View menu and then choose Developer and Developer Tools. Once you do that, you'll notice on the right here, I happen to have it docked on the right hand side. You'll see this aspect, the window splits, and you get another view into the document. And notice as I'm moving my mouse around, you're starting to see things highlight and unhighlight. So you're looking at the HTML that the browser has that's used to render this page. So it's a way to kind of look inside the browser and see what's going on. So one of the first things we notice when we compare this to the correct page is that the aside box is shifted way down low. So let's take a look at that. And if I go and highlight, again, I'm going to zoom in a little to see. If I go and highlight the aside box, you'll see that you can even collapse and open things up. The heading for that, the most beautiful theorem, is actually outside of the aside tag. Now here's a really cool feature. You can live edit this page in the browser using this developer tool and see the results right away. So I'm going to highlight this tag and I'm going to drag it inside the aside. Boom, and there I've just corrected that. Let's go back and look at it full screen, and you can see that it's getting a little better. Another aspect is, notice the heading here is of a certain size, and that the aside box actually sits up beside the heading. When we look at this page here, there's a couple things are different. Number one, this heading is very large, and number two, the aside box is sitting down beside the body. So as we start to examine tags, you can kind of see, so there's the body, there's the header, there's the heading element, and there's the article portion of the document. Now actually this heading, if we were to take and move it inside the article tag so that it is tied to just this article, that's going to change the way in which the browser renders things. When I let it go, all of a sudden the aside box jumps up and the text for the font size is smaller. Another aspect of this developer tools is down below. You can see we've got styles, and you can actually see the styles that are in effect at the time this browser rendered the page. And notice here, I'm going to zoom in again, you can see that some of these are crossed out. Now you have to remember that, and this is what we call the cascading part of style sheets. So styles are applied according to a set of rules. For starters here, you see the body, that's the biggest container, if you will. If I collapse the body down, that's the entire portion that's visible. So the body tag has certain styles apply, like a no margins, line height, the width of 98%, and so on. Within the body, you get to the heading. And one of the things you'll see is there's the header. It's got a width of 100% and a text align of center. And you'll also notice that it's got what is inherited from the body. So you can see that it's got margins, and some of these are grayed out, and some of them can be crossed out if they're completely overridden. So one of the things, and as I move my mouse into and next to the style, you can see that there's a checkbox. Now watch this. If I click the checkbox, it takes it off. It temporarily disables that style. So I can actually play with or examine styles and try things here in the window without actually having to write code, save it, render it, then study it and figure out what's wrong. I can actually work on the document here. So you can see we've already made some progress with this. I'm also going to take a look at another page. It's actually part of tutorial 3, but again, I'm going to go to View, Developer, Developer Tools, and we can see the styles that apply to this page. One of the first things I want to point out is if we look at the nav bar, we look down at the bottom for the nav and you'll see these ordered lists, or unordered lists rather. And you notice, for example, this has got a line style type, and then it's changed to none. So line style type was originally in the unordered list, defaults to a disk or a dot display. But here we've overridden that, which is why you see it crossed out at this level, but at the nav UL combination we've set it to none. And just to kind of prove this, I'm going to uncheck it, and there are the dots, the disks. Same thing with line height. I can turn on and off line height and see what the behavior is. I can turn off background color, and because the text is white, it appears to be blank or missing. So these developer tools provide a way for you to visually and easily examine the HTML styles and see what it's doing. Another thing I want to look at down here is this footer. So if I go and look at the footer section here, and we open this up, you can see the address, and notice the styles are getting a little more complicated. So you've got a body to begin with, which has styles, and then you have there's actually, you can see the address is a little bolder. There's just an address element, and that's coming from just the behavior of HTML5. And then you have another address, and notice this says essaylayout.css46. So just a plain old address is being controlled by this thing. But when an address is within a footer tag, it's actually overridden and appears in a different format. You can even click on this. This is a hyperlink. I can click, and it will take me right to the style sheet to show me what we're looking at and how it appears. I go back up and switch back to the elements of the page. I can see how things are rendered and changed. Now there's a footer address, and so that address, because the address here is in the footer, a different style takes effect. That is the notion of cascading styles. So this has been a kind of a brief, quick introduction, but hopefully you have a new tool in your tool belt or arsenal to be able to use when you're trying to figure out what's going on with your documents and in your styles.